Hey, Prof. Good morning to you. How are you today?
Morning, Bibby. I'm fine. Thank you very much. Good morning to you too. How
Good,
are you?
good. I'm very well. I'm very well. I think the weather has tried a little bit for this past week, so I can't really
What
complain.
are
The
you
week
talking about? The
before
weather has been
was.
great for the last 3 weeks.
Do you think so? No, not for the last 3 weeks, as I can remember. Not at all. But
Well, you
yes,
didn't like the
anyway.
heat wave.
Oh no. Do you know, it's just well, British weather, as they say. Anyways, viewers, good morning to you. How are you today? Thank you for joining us on your favorite Sunday morning show, the SonRise. I hope you have told your friends and family to join us this morning. So let us know where you're watching from. Let's know where you are in the comment section. So welcome and thank you for joining us. Prof, so this morning, since it seems I think you have been in a different country to me in the last 3 weeks because we feel like we've had very great weather. Anyway, I can see that you're really smiling and all. So probably that maybe because you just had a break and you're back and so refreshed and all of that. But it's all good. Well done to you. Well done to Jay, because yes, I can say she's doing very well. Anyways, so viewers, this morning, what are we talking about? Myself and Prof were discussing earlier today, and we're talking about some things. We've been talking a lot about the Olympics. Remember last week we actually referred to the Olympics as well, as that's the only sports for me. I think that actually I missed my 1 p.m. news, the BBC One news, because they wouldn't show that anymore because of the Olympics. So I'm forced to actually watch the Olympics. But anyway, so we're talking about, okay, how do we deal with disappointment? Taking a leave from these guys who have planned, they have prepared for God knows how long for this event, and the day comes, even like the world champions that we've known, they have won in several games, only for them to get to the Olympics, and they're not even, let's not even talk about gold. Like silver, they couldn't even get that. And of course, you can tell because when they show them on TV, you can see how disappointed they were, some of them would be crying and some would just be like so upset with themselves. But you actually would feel, as someone who's watching from the outside, would feel that, okay, maybe that's it for this person. They're never coming back again. But come next time, they are first in line to compete again. What does that tell us? In terms of Prof, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this in terms of how these guys deal with disappointment, because I have to say, for them, the pressure on them, it's way more than if it were just an individual thing. Like if I decided to do something for myself and it doesn't turn out the way I expected it to turn out, I'll be disappointed, right? But at least that's just for me. But imagine if I was representing the whole of England at a game, do you understand? And I did something and I couldn't just get what I went out there to get.
Like missing a penalty, right?
Like missing a penalty, exactly. I like even for those guys, I felt for them because I was thinking, how do they cope? The nights after that night, weeks even after, how do they cope? A lot of people might say, oh, forget them, they have their money, they're being paid anyway, so what does it matter and everything? But I think it's way more than that. So Prof, how do you think these guys deal with disappointment, and what do you think for us as individuals and even as Christians, what can we learn from them, if there's anything at all?
Thank you, Bibby. I think you set the scene very nicely for anybody watching. I think that anybody, unless of course you've been under a rock, and not House on the Rock, some other rock, you would know that we've had the Olympics, right, going on for the last few weeks. And if at all you've been following the Olympics, well, if you've been watching this show, you would have been following the Olympics in some sense, because we've talked about the Olympics before, right? This is just a different perspective. And I think what you're highlighting is one of the things that happens when we look at elite sport, or indeed elite competition or elite performance in any context, right? So for the Olympics, for example, you see people spending 4 years, in some cases 5 years, like in this one, right, preparing for a particular discipline. And by the way, one common thing between disappointment and discipline is that they both start with D and I. And I think it's key. I think discipline is a key part of dealing with disappointment, but I'll get there. So you find these guys who have come through different routes. Some have come through routes where they've performed very well historically and everybody's looking to them and expecting them to do well. Some have come to from a place where they've had personal expectations of themselves. Either way, what we find happening with the Olympics is that what would normally take the average person perhaps days, perhaps weeks, perhaps months, we see all of that playing out in some cases in front of us for less than 10 seconds. Right? And I'm talking of the men's 100-meter race, right? This takes less than 10 seconds. In under 10 seconds, you see the culmination of all that effort. When you finish, as you saw with the men's 100-meter final, you end up with quite a few people disappointed. And not just the final, even the events leading up to that, right? Of course, you end up with people celebrating as well, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're focusing specifically on disappointment, because I think that when you talk about something like the Olympics, and rightly so, a lot of the focus is on who's won, who's done well, who's beat the odds and things like that.
Absolutely.
That's great, yeah? But in this case, we want to focus on those people who, once the camera runs away, perhaps nobody talks about them anymore. Perhaps people just kind of gloss over the fact that they are going through this really challenging time. Perhaps, people gloss over the fact that every time they look at that race, sometimes they can't look at it because what they remember is not the story of the person winning rather. It's the pain, right, of that hamstring injury that caused them to pull up in the middle of the race. The pain of that injury that made them to not be able to even perform their best just 2 weeks before the competition. The pain of the fact that they didn't do as well as they thought they could have, and so in less than 25 seconds their dream went up in smoke, flames. And so, but the story of the Olympian is very much the story of every one of us. It's just that, like I said, this is in a heightened environment, a heightened cauldron of pressure, and in the view of the whole world. Well, for a lot of us, you have similar stuff. For somebody, it might be 2 hours of an interview, right? Or 2 hours of an exam. And you spend
6 hours of an exam.
Or 6 hours. I don't know, Bibby, that sounded very specific there.
Very, very, very specific to me.
But you know what I mean? So for that given period, and you spent months and months preparing, and then you come out of it. Of course, what we all desire and look forward to is that we come out celebrating and saying this went even better than we expected. But the fact is that sometimes we come out thinking, I don't even want to remember this. It's such a, sometimes the experience is so bad that your brain just shoves it under a carpet. You don't want to think about it because each time you think about it, you think that was just that. Sometimes it's that meeting at work. Right, you prepared and then something happened. Maybe you made a mistake, maybe you dropped the ball somehow, and then you went to that meeting and it was, as they would say, a disaster. It was a catastrophe, right? And the meeting may have just lasted an hour, but you feel to yourself, this is career defining, right? You feel to yourself, can I ever recover from this? And so on and so forth. And I think we get the idea. So what we're doing today is we're just looking at what the Olympians are doing and the experiences they're having, and seeing what we can learn as individuals, right? As Christians, as people that will go through the same sort of thing at some point, right? What can we learn? And that's why I said, disappointment and discipline. In fact, if I said you don't even know which one I'm going to say. It could be disappointment. Right? They start the same way, but they end in different ways. And one is key to getting through the other. So I think for me, what are some of the things that I could say that perhaps we could learn from the people who experience this disappointment? You see, the funny thing, right, with disappointment is disappointment actually always starts as a positive. What do I mean? The fact that you're disappointed means you were expecting something.
True.
Right? Something positive. Nobody is disappointed because they were concerned that something bad may happen and the thing didn't happen. You wouldn't call that disappointment, right? You call that relief.
Yes.
So usually when we say disappointment, it means there was something you were looking forward to. Right? And what disappointment does is that it colors that whole experience so that you then remember only where you ended. And one thing with disappointment as well, disappointment tries to push us to a place where we apply a full stop, rather than a comma, rather than a space, rather than a semicolon. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
like you've got to the end of the road, kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you aren't thinking about it as this is the end, it will somehow temper that disappointment. And that brings me to the first point, the first thing I think we can learn, and that's context. Right? Context. When I was listening to, I don't know how many people were listening to and watching this, but Dina Asher Smith, I think a lot of people watching, they should be familiar with her. If they're not, please look her up. But she was the so-called poster child of Great Britain for the Olympics. She is the world champion. She still is the world champion for 200 meters. I think she won a silver in 100 meters at the last World Championships. And leading up to the Olympics, she was doing the fastest times in the world leading times. So she was very much a medal contender, if not a gold medal contender. And then a couple of weeks ago at the British Championships, she pulled up, right, in the middle of the race. It wasn't clear what was happening, but she got to the Olympics. And then the day before the women's finals, she ran the semi-final and she placed 4th, I believe. And for a while, it wasn't clear whether she would make it to the final as the fastest loser. Long and short, she didn't make it to the final.
Yeah.
And then she came to the interview, and it was a difficult interview to watch, I have to say, especially where she really became quite emotional, right? And like I said, if you've been through disappointment, you will understand what's going on. Anybody that does not empathize perhaps has never experienced this.
Yeah, right? True.
And not just did she then not make it to the 100-meter final, she pulled out of the 200-meter event, which was to commence the next day and then she now revealed that actually the race, the incident that happened with her was that she pulled up, she tore her hamstring and so forth. And, she, on paper, should not even be at the Olympics. It was a minor miracle, if you like, that she was there. But what am I saying? While she was talking about this, she said, I have to remember that I have my career ahead of me. There are other races that are coming, right? I cannot mortgage my entire career on this one race and then perhaps cause damage that then brings everything to an end. And that's context, that's perspective. I should say perspective, perhaps, not even just context, but perspective. One of the keys to dealing with disappointment is to put it into perspective, because like I said, disappointment wants to put a full stop there. But if you recognize this is not a full stop, it's a comma. When you see a comma, nobody looks at a sentence that ends, that you see a comma, you think that's the end of the sentence.
And then you move away.
What's coming up? So you look ahead and say to yourself, there is more to look forward to. There is something coming up. So that perspective can be in the context of your own career. Like I said, you've got that meeting, that experience at work.
Yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't have to be the end. You would have many, many other meetings. And in those many other meetings, you have an opportunity to redefine. And for somebody else would say, well, the context is, think of the fact that I'm at the Olympics. The Olympics, that
even make it that far.
Exactly. Select minority of people actually ever make it. Of course, that's no. You don't say that to somebody who's saying I should have won gold at the run. Oh, you were at the Olympics. I come here to just. But anyway, so I think the first thing is perspective, recognizing that there is always more. There's always more. Put it into perspective, to the perspective of things that matter the most, the perspective of life, the perspective of health, the perspective of longevity, the other things to come, there's a perspective of your overall career journey. Okay, that exam you didn't do as well as you hoped, but the perspective of, you know what, I can try again, I can prepare again. That interview didn't go as well. The perspective is, you know what, I can learn from this and apply that to us. Now, in order to do all of these things, there's a discipline in thinking that is involved, because you really have to rein your mind in. And as David says, why so cast down my soul? So there's a discipline that's involved there. Otherwise, you just let yourself sail away with a stream of self-recrimination, feeling bad and misery, and it just keeps going on, right? So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is hope. And it's linked to what I said. It's part of perspective, but it's really looking forward and saying, you know what? I choose to bring forth and call forth hope. I choose to focus on what's ahead of me.
It's ahead, and
not, the Bible says of Jesus that because of the hope of the glory that was set ahead, he endured the shame of the cross, right? So sometimes hope is what you need to put in front of you, and that allows you to just rise above that very moment, the emotion that you're going through, and they make you think, that this may be the end, but you think, you know what, there is something else to look forward to, and we have to find that hope, right?
Yeah.
The second part of that scripture that I quoted, David said, why so cast down, O my soul? Put your hope in God. Okay.
Yeah.
So the discipline of reining in your mind and kind of directing your mind the way to think.
Yeah.
And then the deliberate action of looking forward to hope and saying, what is it that I can hope for? Again, we see this in Hebrews, where the Bible talks of drawing near, Hebrews chapter 10, and holding fast to our confession of hope. That's very important. And then the final thing there is, I would say, gratitude. Right?
I don't think anyone can beat that.
Gratitude is very important, because if you start, and this is one of the things about gratitude can turn that moment of disappointment into a moment of praise.
That's right. Yeah.
It may seem unto you, you're not doing it to impress anybody. It's really an exercise, again, in self-discipline, bringing yourself to a place where you ought to be. That journey of perspective, that journey of hope is underpinned by that perception of gratitude. Yeah. When you think of where you've been and you hear the Olympians saying this, and in fact, Dinasha Smith, again, said the same thing. She said, I am here, have to remember that I'm here at the Olympics, right? I have to remember that I put in all this stuff, and I think, okay, I'm actually, now I say that, I'm not sure she did say, but I'm pretty sure that a number of other athletes who went through the same thing said that, right? Every one of them that you speak to, I think it was Shirley and Fraser Price, perhaps it was her that said that after her 100-meter loss. She said, you know what, I'm at the Olympics, and not just at the Olympics, the finals. And it's the mindset that makes you think, what can I be grateful for? I can be grateful for where I've got to. I can be grateful for the fact that, you know what, I got to this interview. I got to this point. I can be grateful for the fact that, I got the opportunity to lead this meeting. It may not have gone the way I wanted, but I'm grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for more opportunities to come. I'm grateful for the fact that this doesn't have to be a career-ending or defining moment. And I think these three things are key, really, for us. Because we see that. Just watch again, listen to the athletes and hear how they talk. You see that happen. Yeah. You see them always saying, perspective, there is more. I have to look forward to. I have to think of my career. I have to think of the bigger picture. Secondly, you see them thinking of hope, right? I can compete more. I can come back. I can do. The lady that won the 100-meter final, when she was interviewed, that's Elaine Thompson, she said, I went through a lot of injuries and so forth, but I kept thinking, if I can just come back, I can do better. I can do well. She ended up winning both 100 meters and 200 meters gold, by the way. But you can see the hope there. Hope keeps you going, even when things are not looking the way they should be. And then the final thing, again, with a lot of them who you could see have Christian perspective, they always start saying, I want to thank God. But in many cases, not just God, I want to thank my family, I want to thank my coach, I want to thank everybody who's made it possible for me to do, right? So you see that perspective, hope, and gratitude. These three things help us to deal with disappointment, which will inevitably come.
I think it's like you've said it all, to be honest. It's when you think about it, I actually feel that perspective, gratitude actually helps us put things into perspective, like if you're so grateful, you find something to be grateful for. It helps you to kind of take that step back to say, okay, even though I've been disappointed in this, doesn't matter. That's not the end of the world. I'm going to try again, or I'll do something else, and all of that. And as you've said, as Christians, what we want to do is to make sure that we don't get disappointed to a level where we let that disappointment hold us back from what God still has ahead of us, what He wants us to step into. Because when you focus too much on what didn't work, you end up missing out on what could have worked, because then you're not able to try something else. So viewers, I hope this has blessed you. I actually feel like this was a service in its own, it's like a mini service that Prof had there. But anyway, Prof, thank you so much for that. Viewers, I hope you have enjoyed this, and I hope this has blessed you. As we said, let us not let disappointment hold us back, Anyway, don't go anywhere. When we come back, it will be our Spotlight Minutes. Okay? See you soon.
It is said of the Israelites that the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. These are challenging times. The ground is parched, the riverbed is dry, yet against all odds, you shall grow. Every Sunday this August, Hill City will be leading us in intimate worship, and Pastor Temi will be delivering to us the essential keys for our growth against all odds. You cannot afford to miss a Sunday. Join us online on YouTube or Facebook at HOTR London from 9 a.m. Or you can now come in person by simply registering on our website. The deck might seem stacked against you, but when they say there is a casting down, you shall say there is a lifting up. It's growth against all odds. See you there.
Hey, Adeyinka, good morning.
Hi. Good morning to you.
Mr.
Good morning.
How are
Ade.
you,
You
bro?
know, for those who want to just shorten it, Ade.
Yes.
Wonderful.
How are you doing? Thank you for
I'm
joining
doing
us.
fine. I'm doing
Good.
fine. Thank you. Four
Good.
weeks married now.
4 weeks. Oh, look at him. No wonder.
Do you know? So how is your wife doing? Hope your wife is doing well. How does that
She's
sound?
doing fine. Maybe you should ask me how am I doing.
Exactly. I think this is about Adeyinka. I'm not sure why
I've been a good boy.
Well done, well done. Thank you.
We've
very
had
much.
his wife, and we will have her again on this show. But we're not going to say who that is. It's up to them to say if they want to. But I've got a question for you. You've given us an insight about something about you, Adeyinka. But just for those who may have missed that, or who already know that, is there anything else you can tell us about yourself that those who are watching may not know?
Well, obviously, what I'm about to say, nobody knows. I can be very domestic. I do laundry. I do cleaning. I do oven. Yeah, I do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
My wife's so
Yeah,
blessed.
well,
I cook some things.
We wouldn't know that unless we were living with you, right?
I know.
Well, we can
that's like
ask
the
his
people I
wife
don't
to
know.
confirm.
Yes, we get the opportunity. Good stuff. Okay, great. Bibby, over to you.
Well, thank you. Well, we found out something else. You see, Prof, I think we're just too blessed. We're too blessed on this show. We have people into business. We have people we have a man who's very, very domesticated.
Well, I
help
can
out in
cook,
the
I
house.
can clean as well. I think a lot of men do that.
Well, Prof, you never said that about yourself, so that's fine.
You didn't
Don't
ask
worry
me.
about it. Well done, Adeyinka. Thank you very much. Anyways,
welcome.
you've joined us on the SonRise show, and this time it's our Spotlight Minute. I'm sure you have been watching the show, so you know what this is all about. We have
Yes,
two options for you this morning. So the first option is all about me, so all about you. That's where we ask you random questions and you just give us an answer and see how many you can get through under 30 seconds. And then the second option is tell me something. So tell me something is where I'll give you a word and you make use of that word in as many times as possible under 30 seconds. So, but of course, the sentences you use have to make sense. You know, we have to be able to make sense of the sentences. So what will be your option this morning? What will be your
I'll
choice?
go for the first option.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's good then. We have, I think currently on the leaderboard, it's the target is 7, right, Prof?
7. Well, the
Oh,
target
yes.
is 8. The leader is at 7.
Oh, so the leader is 7 and the target is 8. So 8 and above, basically. So if you're ready, I am ready. Prof, are you ready?
Ready to go.
So let me just say very quickly, if you don't have an answer to a question, just say pass. So Prof can read another question very quickly because time is of essence, right? So the timer will be on your screen. If you can't see it, don't worry. I'll tell you when your time starts and when it stops. Okay?
Okay then.
All right. Prof, are you ready to go?
Yep.
Adeyinka, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so your time starts now.
What's your favorite board game?
Chess,
What's your least favorite food?
Amala,
What's your favorite movie?
MI2.
Who is the greatest band of all time?
Greatest who?
The greatest
Greatest
band of all
band.
time.
Oh, that's Backstreet Boys.
What's your favorite holiday?
Vacation, like that's traveling.
What's your favorite hobby?
I love to watch music.
What's a random food you hate?
Time up.
Right?
Time up.
Okay, 6.
Number 6.
It is because he says he likes to watch music, not listen to it. But
Oh, like watch music video.
I know that's what you meant. But she was laughing when you
But
said
no,
it.
that was fine. I think for me, just saying music would have been enough, you know?
Oh,
But the
yeah.
It
extra
tells
words-
you, unlike somebody else we know who Adeyinka knows very well, that person did their homework, and when they came up here, they were blitzing through the questions. Clearly, Adeyinka has not. So maybe you should speak to that person who you know very well, who's very close to you.
Yes.
How the person did it.
Make sure you do that. But I mean, that was good. 6. That's very, very close. Again, I guess our leaders, continue enjoying your trophies. It seems.
And you're not allowed to share. You're not allowed to share.
Well, you have to say that.
Yeah, with your wife or your husband, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so very much for joining us this morning, bro.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Have a good day. We'll see you in service, okay?
All right.
And you too. All right, then. Yeah, bye.
Oh, wow. well done, Adeyinka. Thank you so much for joining us. 6 isn't bad at all. Maybe you should have a session with your wife before you come back next.
Well, I was trying to not use those exact words, but you've let the cat out of the bag, yes.
Oh, yeah, because
she wrote the playbook on how to do well at All About You. You know?
Well, do you know, it was like she came all prepared, and I feel like Adeyinka is the type who would want to really explain himself, like he wants to use many words, bless him. But anyway, I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much. By the way, viewers, as we said, we're bringing back Humphrey. I'm sure you enjoyed last week. We were rolling on the floor. So Humphrey will have to keep coming to give us some of this light laugh, you know, as we say. But yeah, Prof, it is time for service. Viewers, we have come to the end of the show. As you know, our time is very short on here, but we like to make it very short and sweet. And I mean, that's what keeps it going, right? So thank you for joining us today. We hope you join us again next time. Prof, it's time for service. Please take us into service.
Thank you, Bibby. It's that month of growth against all odds, and we're going to really get into it. I can't wait for it. I think that a lot of the things we've been talking about are things that are going to be, highlighted in that conversation. Of course, waiting for us at the Rock Tower today, we have Hill City, we have Pastor Temi, and you might see other people there as well that you recognize. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with the service. God bless you.
God bless you.